Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of Development Management Committee. I'll just go through the preliminaries first. And members of the public are entitled to take photographs, film, audio record and report on all public meetings in accordance with the openness of local government bodies regulation 2014. People may not, however, act in any way considered to be disruptive and may be asked to leave. Notice of these rights will be given verbally at the meeting as appropriate. Emergency evacuation procedure. Council chamber, turn left, follow the green emergency exit signs to the main town hall entrance and proceed to the assembly point in St George's Square. Just to remind all those present, please wear a face mask until seated. Maintain a sensible social distance when moving around the chamber and use the hand sanitizer provided. Please scan the QR NHS app poster with your mobile phone located at the entrance of the chamber and then switch phones to silent. Members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on and speak directly into the microphone and switch off again after speaking. Reporting officers use Teams, please switch cameras on, etc, etc. The meeting tonight will be live streamed to the public and recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Are there any apologies tonight?
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies from Councillors Agley and Councillor Ali.
Minutes of the 5th of January. Happy with those? And I'll sign them later on. Everyone okay with them? Section 106 Local Government Act. Any declarations? Any disclosures of interest tonight? Councillor Bridgen.
Yes, Chair, the usual one in relation to Newlands Park applications. I'm declaring a personal and prejudicial interest as a Luton Town Football Club season ticket holder.
Chair.
Please.
Chair.
So we'll go on to the agenda proper, and I'll deal with some out of order here. And I'll deal with agenda item 10, that's 37 Burford Road. The applicant or the applicant's agent is here. Are you here? If you want to come forward to a microphone, I'll indicate to you when you'll be able to speak. This was deferred for visits. Could I ask members who visited this particular site? Okay. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members visited.
Chair, I visited, but not as part of a formal visit. So I've seen the site, but not as part of it.
Well, there wasn't a formal visit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you did. You've actually visited the site. Yeah. Okay, we'll go on to page 192 to 2002. Nan Wang, is she around?
Yeah, good evening, chairs, members.
Oh, you're in front of me. I was looking on the screen.
Yeah, my name is Nan Wang, the planning officer. Today I'm presenting 37 Burford Close, an erection of 2-story side and rear extension, single-story front extension alongside with Julia balcony at first floor, resubmission. There's a verbal update for a correction on the main report, and there's a typing error for the set address, which should be 37 Burford Close.
Dan, can you move the microphone towards you? I can't quite hear you.
Not Burford Road. And there is an update report for this application, as the applicant has submitted an amended set location plan and block plan, and made change to his response of head of planning report recommendation for refusal. And the applicant site is a detached dwelling located within Burford Close and adjacent to White Horse Well, which are mainly residential in character. And some property within the vicinity has been permitted with 2-story extensions. However, most of them are either 2-story side or 2-story rear. Next slide, please. And here's the existing floor plan and elevations. The site benefits from a large amenity space at front and rear and a detached double garage located to the north of the host dwelling. Next slide, please. There's no issue raised with the single-story front extension. However, the two-story element would project approximately 6 meters from the original northern flank elevations and 5.29 meters from the original rear elevation of the host dwelling. And the overall footprint at the first floor level would be doubled. The proposal would present an intensive form of development which would dominate the appearance of the host dwelling and visually intrusive within the street scene. Next slide, please. And moving to the impact to the adjoining occupier, the only property that would be materially affected by the development would be 36 Burford Close, which is a detached property located on the north of the applicant site. And the two-story side element would introduce 6.3 meter deep and two-story flank wall close to the common boundary. And the development would be clearly visible from the first floor bedroom window at the front elevations. Based on the daylight and a sunlight assessment provided, it is not considered the proposed development would be material impact to this property in terms of loss of light and overshadowing. However, the two-story set element would project about 6.3 meters from this first floor window, would have a detrimental impact in terms of visual intrusion of the occupier of this property. We have received 2 objections from the adjoining occupiers, and however the main concern are related to the parking arrangement. An amended parking plan with a retained turning hammerhead area has been provided by the applicant, so it is not considered the parking arrangement would have a material impact to these properties and these 2 occupiers. And overall, the development would result in unacceptable impact on the character and appearance of the existing host dwelling and the surrounding area. And it also considered to have a detrimental impact to the amenity of the adjoining occupiers. On this basis, a refusal is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Just to clarify, Nan, you said that the objection from number 38 was related to parking, but there's no issue with parking. Is that what you said?
Because on the original block plan, the parking was parked on the turning head area, which should have should always return for the other properties to turning ahead. And now the applicant has moved the parking to the back. They got sufficient parking area at the front of the property. Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Councillor Mahmood Hussain.
Can I just ask you, in terms of the independent report that's been sent to the members, as well as yourselves, are you saying that loss of light is still has an impact and overlooking? Is that the issues you've got?
The loss of the impact on loss of light and overshadowing is considered acceptable based on the report submitted. So the main concern is a visual intrusion.
Okay, so the major thing is visual intrusion. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want a clarification from you.
Thank you, Chair. As you said that it will be detrimental to the rest of the property or the site, it's a corner plot and it's a detached property.
It's end of the close.
I think
The property is number 36 is located on the north, which is shows on the block plan. the one colored in grey.
You know, the dimension, you know, the description I have on page number 193, it is marked in a dark color. I don't know, Chair, whether I can show you.
That's because it's close.
Yeah?
She's right.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's no corner property.
It's not a corner one. It's a
end.
close, yeah? It's end of the close.
Yeah, so that's
No, what I want to understand that, you know, how it's going to be detrimental, because if it's a detached property and it's a bigger plot and it's not affecting anybody, so why we can't allow them?
If you look at the block plan on the screen, on the adjoining property, they have a first floor window located on the flank elevations, and then the proposed development will build close to the common boundary, and it will have about 6.3 meter two-story flank wall. So that means from the bedroom window at the first floor level of number 36, they will see that two-story flank wall.
Thank you, Chair.
Ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to speak in support of the application, please. You've got up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to you and all members, and thank you for this opportunity to present my case. I'll move swiftly onto my report, which addresses the 2 reasons for refusal. The first reason for refusal is with regards to the impact on the visual amenities of the surrounding area and the character and the appearance of the area. Firstly, the surrounding area comprises a large mix, 5 to 6 different styles of houses, as you can see in Appendix 1 of the report I shared. Within the whole close, only 2 other properties are of the same style as the application site. Therefore, the council's claim that the properties within the close are similar in terms of design, style and size is not completely accurate, especially considering the application site. Secondly, the application site is on a relatively spacious plot, 0.153 acres, and as such, the extensions would not appear overly large relative to the overall plot size. It is pertinent to note that there is no throughway and the application site is the last property in the close, and the bulk of the extension is at the rear and not visible from the street scene. The 2-story extension will be 1,000 millimetres from the shared boundary of the neighbour, and the neighbour's 2-story extension is 960 millimetres from the boundary, and therefore the total gap of 1.96 metres will be left. Therefore, the open space between the dwellings would remain, and the proposal would not result in a loss of the spacious character within the street scene. Whilst the size of the extension would be large, the use of the setback first floor, lowered ridge height, and similar solid to void ratios as the existing would ensure that the extension would be proportionate and subservient to the original dwelling and would not be viewed as an incongruous feature in the street scene. By reason of orientation and design of the estate, the property is sited forward of the neighbouring dwellings along Burford Close. Although the size and bulk of the property would increase, when viewed from where one enters the close, there would not be a material change in the current street scene, and this is evidenced in Appendix 4. The key message here is that the council are allowing a 4-metre first floor extension, but not 6-metre width. Now, there is no visual difference from the street scene, as the property, as the only side of the property that is visible from the street is the side. So therefore, there is no actual visual difference between 4 and 6 metres width. With regards to the refusal number 2, this is in relation to the impact on the adjoining property number 36. I commissioned a daylight sunlight assessment, which is also attached, and that provides without any exceptions there is no adverse impact on the neighbouring property in accordance with BRE guidelines. We passed all tests with excellent results, as is referenced in the report that you have. The daylight sunlight report was also shared with the neighbour at number 36, who only raised an objection with regards to parking, which we then further amended and addressed. The key message here, once again, is that there are no objections raised with regards to the extension itself or the visual intrusion. The double-storey extension on number 36 is visible from the rear of our property as well, and this is evidenced in Appendix 4. And this clearly shares similar characteristics in terms of size and perceived visual intrusion. This is visible from our habitable rooms, i.e. upstairs bedrooms and downstairs lounge. As a neighbouring double-storey extension was permitted, we see no reason why our scheme should be refused on these grounds. Finally, there are no windows on the neighbour's flank elevation and of their two-storey extension, and the ground floor is a garage. Therefore, visual intrusion is not considered to be material enough to refuse the application. And just the final consideration as well, Chair, is that following the Council's initial request, we made all the amendments that they proposed. They were namely the below, reducing the roof height so it's subordinate to the existing, reducing the ground floor at the front level to be level with the other side of the house. We removed the loft conversion. We removed the balcony and opted for a Juliet balcony as they advised. And finally, there was no objection raised with regards to the width of the two-storey extension in the initial list of proposed amendments by the Council once we agreed to all the changes. And this new condition was imposed. However, after careful consideration, it was not viable for us to amend and comply with this final requirement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for taking less than 5 minutes. Any questions to the applicant's representative? Councillor Abbas Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with your one and number 2, yeah? But when I did a site visit from Whitehorse, so I went down the close first, I looked at it from the end of the close, I'm happy with. But when you came on the Whitehouse Vale side of it, looked at it, you got beautiful green trees that cover, so you're right there. Even if you do this extension, you cannot see the property. But the question that I want to ask you is, have you got any plans of moving those trees from there? From Whitehouse Vale border with your fencing there?
Thank you for the question. No plans at all to move any of the trees, and therefore there will be no impact or no change to the street scene from that angle either.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I visited the property and had a look, in terms of, it was about 1:30 in the afternoon and it was a beautiful sunlight, sunshine as an exceptional day. And in terms of, not only the report, but seeing that in terms of the light and the overlooking, because the property in a way was set so far in front, it was probably unusual for the whole close. And in terms of the visual intrusion, because the development that has been proposed is quite a setback, and there's quite a distance between the two, I will not be supporting the officer's recommendation. In fact, I think it will have no major impact in terms of the visual intrusion.
Donald.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reassure the applicant that I don't just rubber stamp officers' recommendations, and I do consider them very carefully. And I did go and look at this site, and I have to say I agree with the officer's recommendation. I don't think that this should be approved. I think it will adversely impact upon the street scene. I think the visual intrusion on the next door neighbour isn't acceptable, and I agree that this application should be refused.
Councillor Campbell, did you indicate?
I was just looking at page 195. It says flood risk, no. I must tell you that this was a farmland and they put some massive drains into that development because from the Marsh Farm or Warden Hill, it comes into a valley where it can flood. We've had problems there already, which some of the tenants, some of the owners had payout from Thames Water due to the flood. So I know they put some massive 1.5 metre drains when they built this estate to try and alleviate any flood. So I think that is probably incorrect in the report.
So you're saying there is still a flood risk, although that you're still saying there is a flood risk, although the fact that they've actually increased the size of the drains to accommodate.
Sorry everyone. We had a problem over in Birmingham with flood. Thames Water was there. When they built this estate, they had to put some massive drains to alleviate any possibility of floods. Some of them are blocked because they don't clean them anymore. And there was a lot of houses near Ickney Way where the water had come down and damaged some properties. So there is a likelihood because of Auden Hill and Marshall Hill, it comes down into a valley. And it was a farmland originally. So that's all I'm saying.
So if somebody can answer that, you're saying that this, allowing this extension, or it would increase the probability? Yeah. Is there anybody that can answer that question, please?
In terms of flood risk, correct me if I'm wrong, Nan, but there wasn't, this wasn't an issue that we considered in relation to this application, and it's not in a flood risk zone, is it?
We didn't consult local flood for this application.
Yeah, it's not in a flood risk zone, so there was no consideration of that issue in relation to this application.
We had a lot of consultation with Thames Water because it's my ward, and there was problems and people complained about they had flood damage, and we inspected it. It was. Some of them had £15,000 in compensation from Thames Water. There is a lady at one of the consultations brought out a document proving that it's possible to have floods in that area.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're going off on a tangent here because would this, yeah, and the officer has said that it's not in a floodplain, so I'm happy with that. Yeah, Councillor Kershid, and then.
Thank you, Chair. I think the fellow councillor has made a valid point, and I think that needs to be checked out. You know whether, as the report says, there's no flood risk, but as the council says, that lives in the ward. So I think it's a good idea that we need to be 100% sure that there are no issues.
I'm not really sure that it's a relevant argument. So it's it's an irrelevant argument. The answer has been given. It's not in a floodplain. Councillor Abbas.
I was going to say exactly the same thing as you. Yeah, it's not in a floodplain, and Birmingham is a big ward. I'm not saying that they ain't got flood issues, but it doesn't mention anywhere that this location at Burford Close has a problem. You know, anywhere in Luton can be flooded, to be honest with you, but but it's not particular to this application.
We are aware of the flooding issues in Birmingham a few years ago, and to the best of my knowledge, it was resolved. Any further comments? Then I'm going to put it to the vote. We vote individually. The recommendation is refusal.
Okay, is that seconded? Who's seconded?
Seconded.
Right. I'll call the names one at a time, and then if you could answer, please. Councillor Bridgen?
In favour of the recommendation.
In favour, yep.
4.
4. Councillor Campbell?
Against. You say against.
Against.
Oh, sorry, 4.
4.
4.
Councillor Donovan?
Yeah, the recommendation's refusal. Absolutely, I agree, refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Franks?
Yep, for the refusal.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
Against.
Against?
Against, yeah.
Councillor Mahmoud Hussain?
Against.
Sorry?
Against.
Councillor Kershid?
Against.
Councillor Mahmood? Sorry, Masood?
Against.
Lastly, Councillor Taylor?
I'm going to go against.
Against?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5-4.
So it's 5-4, the recommendation, and 4 against.
That's right.
So the
No.
carried.
No, there's 4, and I make it 5 against.
Sorry. I've got it. Councillor Bridgen, 4. Campbell, 4. Donovan, 4. Franks, 4. Mahmood Hussain, 4.
No, he was against.
He was against?
He was definitely against, yeah.
I did check it, but there you go. So in that case, it is 4 against 4. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Taylor, you have the casting vote.
Well, it's 5-4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
5-4
3, 4, 5. Sorry.
against the officer's recommendation.
Sorry, Chair, my mistake.
We're supposed to be writing down the same results and getting
It's
different.
against.
I think it's a arithmetic problem.
Apologies.
No, that's all right. So the recommended for refusal is lost. So we go to. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, councillors. So yeah, the recommendation to refuse has been lost 5-4. So there is now an option for you, councillors, to put another recommendation upon the table, which would need to be seconded. If that recommendation was to approve, then you would need to give reasons for the approval. You would also need to give conditions. Now, it may not be in your gift to necessarily list all the conditions that you can think of that could be attached to an approval. As a result, what I would suggest, if the application were to be recommended for approval, you would actually defer for the planning officers to suggest, and I only say suggest because they've made their decision, which is one of refusal. So the planning officers could, however, in another report, include the potential conditions that you feel would be appropriate next time round in the event that you were happy to approve the application. Thank you, Chairman.
The name of the people who approved the planning application, please, again.
I thought we'd read them out. Okay, I'll read them out. For refusal, Councillor Bridgen, Campbell, Donnellan and Franks. Against the officer's recommendation to refuse is Councillor Abbas Hussain, Emma Hussain, Kershid, Masood and Taylor. That's 5-4. Councillor Abbas Hussain, Councillor Mahmood Hussain, Councillor Kershid, Councillor Masood and myself. I get a vote as well. So it's 5-4 against the officer's recommendation. The advice from our solicitor is this is deferred. No? Oh.
If I may. No, it's up to councillors to now put forward whatever they want as a further recommendation.
Yeah.
I would assume, but it's up to you, that that recommendation will be one to approve. That would obviously need to be seconded. But I would suggest that because it wouldn't be in your gift to include all the conditions that would need to be attached to an approval, for example, one that comes to mind is because of the size of the extension, there may need to be a condition to remove permitted development rights. I don't know offhand, but it would be safe if you did want to approve that it actually be deferred, subject to approval, and a further report to come back with suggested conditions that you could attach to an approval next time round. Okay?
So we've not voted to approve the application yet.
Exactly. So you need to formally.
So it comes back probably at the next meeting with conditions for approval.
But the vote needs to be taken as to whether they want to approve, because, for example, there could be a requirement for another site visit. I doubt
yeah,
it.
That's where I was, but the confusion was reigning. Okay, so will somebody propose approval?
I move approval and deferred for the conditions and all that.
Okay, is that seconded?
Yeah.
Second by me.
Yeah, so we'll go to the vote.
So voting again. Councillor Bridgen?
Against?
Councillor Campbell? Councillor Donnellan?
Against.
Against. Councillor Franks?
Against.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
For.
Mahmoud Hussain?
For.
Councillor Kershid?
For.
Councillor Masood?
For.
Councillor Taylor? So, four, it's 5-4, the motion to approve, and 4 against.
Correct. We got it right this time.
Sorry, can you make sure I know what you're recommending now?
Well, the recommendation is to approve, but defer to a future meeting, so that the conditions of the recommendation can be submitted by the officers.
Could I ask for clarification? Sorry, I should have said this. For the person that proposed, just to give their reasons for approval, which...
My reason is that there will be, and I think I said that when I made the statement, that there will be no major impact in visual intrusion. Okay?
Okay. Now we'll go on to agenda item 8, land adjacent junction 10 to 10A M1 Newlands Road, Northside, Luton, David Hall. I think we need to clear up something as well tonight, because there was a very, very late objection came in from Ludlow Avenue objecting to this, but there were both of them. And I just want to say, do you want to actually say, do we accept or reject that objection?
Thank you, Chairman. Although there is the representation period that's included on site notices and so on, the council has to take all representations it receives into account that are material. Therefore, even though there is the cut-off date for objections or positive representations to be made, it would be remiss of the council not to take every consideration into account. That is why sometimes you receive either an update report or a verbal update relating to those late items that have been received. So in conclusion, yes, you do have to take them into account, but Chairman, you've made a valid point about really those representations should be made during the representation period as set out in the notices and so on. Thank you.
Yeah, it could be best described as a late application of at least 3 years too late. I think everyone has read it. It's quite a short objection, but it's coming from a resident of Ludlow Avenue who says he supports Luton 2020 developments, but doesn't think that this is the right place for the developments proposed. Came as an email this afternoon.
I think the planning officer is going to pick it up anyway.
Sonny, did you, or David, do you want to pick this up?
Yes, Chair, I'll pick up the points that were raised, if you wish, in the letter of objection, and I was proposing to do that in my short update in my presentation.
Yeah, okay, you can do that. And will you communicate with the objector?
Yes, I'll respond to the objector and respond to his email.
Okay. Thank you very much. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 updates for members in addition to the late objection. Insofar as the updates are concerned, firstly to report that the application has been advertised as a departure from the provisions of the development plan. A resolution to grant, therefore, will be subject to any new representations that may be received. Secondly, a small amendment to condition 22 on page 122 on the 8th line after CCTV, the words works of art and other similar aspect of the development. Moving on to the objection, in effect covers 2 points, one of which is the visual impact of the development on the locality, and an assessment by the objector that it would be detrimental to the visual impact of the locality. The matter of visual impact of the development is covered quite comprehensively in the report. I should preface it by saying that the objection relates to both of the applications, that is to the north application 01588 and the south application 01589. But it is covered in both reports comprehensively. Insofar as public consultation is concerned, the application was advertised in April 2021. It was re-advertised in February 2022. Site notices were posted in 2021, and all of the residents in Ludlow Avenue were sent letters. The site has been allocated since 2001 for employment use, and of course there is an extant consent and a planning application which ran from 2016 to 2019, which was subject to quite extensive publicity. Insofar as comments on the matters of public consultation, as I said, there is an extant consent which was fully advertised, and this application has been fully advertised. It would suggest to members that there is no need for any further reconsultation, and so far as this is probably the most exposed site in terms of advertisement that there has been for some time. If I can now move on to my presentation, if I may have the first slide, please. The application has been brought to committee as it is a major application. Members should note that the application is submitted as an outline with all matters reserved for subsequent approval, save for access. As such, the reserved matters to be further considered would comprise appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. The first slide indicates both the north and the south site, and the application site for the north comprises 9.45 hectares of greenfield land in the southern part of the borough. Next slide, please. The application site is to the north of Newlands Road and comprises 4 plots, plots A, B, C and D. If we can have the next slide, please. Plots A and B will be allocated for retail, leisure and car parking, and plots C and D for flexible commercial and business floor space and car parking. Next slide, please. There is an option for a logistics facility which would be on plots C and D. Next slide, please. As I said at the outset, the application is submitted in outline except for access. Access to the site will be on a spine road on the northern boundary of the site, which links London Road down to Newlands Road. If I could have the next slide, please. This slide indicates the points of access to the site specifically. Next slide, please. Members will be aware that the application benefits from the grant of planning permission under reference 161401A. This slide provides a CGI of the design parameter for the extant proposals. The next slide, please. This slide, by comparison, shows a comparative CGI of the design parameters for the proposed scheme. Next slide, please. This slide shows an illustrative site layout of both sites, north and south. Again, the site of plots A, B, C and D are to the north of Newlands Road. Next slide, please. In terms of the height, the extant consent has a parameter height of 25 metres at the northern part of the site, going to just under 30 metres to the south. By comparison, if I could have the next slide, please. The proposed development indicates parameter heights at plot A of 12 metres and B 18 metres. In terms of plots C and D, the intended height would be 18 metres. Next slide, please. This is a tabulation which indicates the comparison of floor space. The floor space proposed for the retail and leisure side of it is 18,600 and 16,000 square metres of flexible commercial and business floor space. This is a reduction of 49,000 square metres in terms of retail floor space from the extant consent. Next slide, please. It is proposed to phase the development, with Plot A being developed first. Next slide, please. The final slide provides an illustrative scheme showing design of both the north and the south site, that is from the airport side. The application site is part of that identified on the proposals map of the local plan as a strategic allocation. Policy LLP5 is relevant and is considered in two parts. Part A of the policy identifies the site firstly as a prestigious gateway development to provide B1 business use, and secondly, land to be safeguarded for a park and ride facility. The application proposals for the site do provide development that would meet the current definition of employment floor space by providing up to 16,000 square metres flexible commercial and business floor space, and in this regard comply with Part A of Policy LLP5. However, it is evident that the proposed retail, leisure, food and beverage uses are not identified within Part A of Policy LLP5. It is the case, therefore, that the application proposals in this respect do not conform to the specific policy allocation of the site. Members should note, however, that Policy LLP40 of the plan required an early review to consider the allocation of the site in the context of taking into account the outcome of the application proposals for Power Court and the Newlands site, which were submitted at the time of the examination of the local plan. Both of these applications benefited from the grant of planning permission, and this will be material in the future allocations of these sites in any review. Part B of Policy LLP5 sets out a number of requirements for the development. The application proposals are considered to respond positively to these requirements as set out in the report. Policy LLP1 Category B requires all new developments to contribute to enhancing or improving the character of the area. Whilst the application is in outline form only, parameter plans provide an indication as to the layout, scale, mass and bulk of the development proposed. The proposals to provide flexible commercial and business floor space on a strategic allocated site in this respect comply with Policy LLP1. However, the proposals also provide a mix of retail and main town centre uses for which the most sustainable location would be the town centre. The proposed retail and leisure uses do not in this respect comply with Policy LLP1. The application seeks to provide a substantial amount of retail and other town centre uses in an out-of-centre location, whereas Policy LLP2C seeks to direct these uses to Luton Town Centre and other defined centres within the centre hierarchy. The application's retail and leisure proposals are in conflict with Policy LLP2C. Policy LLP2E requires the natural environment, historic environment and heritage assets of the borough to be protected and enhanced. These matters are addressed in the report. With regard to retail and other town centre uses, the local plan in LLP3A3 identifies Power Court as one of the sites to accommodate these uses. Insofar as Power Court is concerned, members will be aware that planning permission was granted in 2019 for a mixed-use development. Additionally, members resolved to grant planning permission for a similar scheme, excluding the stadium, at their meeting in October. The capacity of the Power Court site to deliver any significant quantum of comparison goods retail floor space has therefore diminished. As set out in the report, the provision of retail and leisure floor space and commercial leisure, food and beverage uses in an out-of-town location conflicts with Policy LLP3A3. Outlined at paragraphs 121 and 122 of the report are the benefits that the applicant considers would flow from the development. It is also a material consideration that the extent planning permission allows for a substantially greater amount of retail floor space from that the subject of this application. These are both material considerations. The rationale for the proposals maintains the clawback of trade that is leaking from Luton to other centres and the economic benefits that a development of this scale will bring in terms of creating employment and generating local economic stimulus. As an out-of-centre development, the level of linkage in spending and footfall terms with the town centre is reduced, and this needs to be considered in the context of trade diversion and impacts that the development will have upon the town centre. The council's retail consultant concluded that on the basis of the history of the Newlands Park development, that the extant consent, as well as the approach adopted by the applicant in their retail assessment, is sufficient to justify the need for continuing restrictions. These restrictions are set out fully in paragraph 147 of the report. If members resolve to approve this application, then it will be necessary to ensure the delivery of the stadium at Power Court to slab level before any part of the retail and leisure elements on this application site can be occupied. This is to ensure compliance with the retail sequential tests as set out in the report, and also to address retail impact. This will be dealt with through a Section 106 obligation. The strengths and weaknesses of this approach is set out in the report. The overall scheme would create many jobs and would continue to ensure that spending in the borough by visitors and residents, aiding local economic activity and growth, would be maintained. The construction phase would create jobs over the build period, whilst the expanded operations and other commercial uses would raise permanent employment levels in the area. This would be consistent with policy LLP1. Other major issues relating to impacts from the proposal on the environment during the construction are satisfactory, subject to recommended conditions and obligations. Effects on neighbours to the site are on balance satisfactory, with mitigation provided through conditions. So far as the site layout is concerned, conditions are proposed to secure a design code to focus the final design to achieve high-quality architecture and design integrity, as well as ensuring that the proposed public realm is both durable and attractive. It is considered on the basis of the information submitted that this is achievable. In accordance with the conclusions of the ES, it is considered that the proposed development could be accommodated within the local landscape, with limited adverse effect upon the wider landscape character and visual resources. Archaeology and heritage. The consultation response from both Historic England and the Council's Conservation Advisor conclude that the proposed development would not impact on the Grade 2 listed Stockwood House stable block and would result in less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 star historic landscape heritage asset at Luton Hoo. Section 66 of the local Listed Buildings Conservation Act 1990 requires that the harm, however small, has to be given significant weight before the NPPF balancing exercise is undertaken. In consequence, it is therefore a matter for the local planning authority to consider whether the benefits arising from the proposed development outweigh the harm to the heritage asset. Traffic and parking. Traffic. National Highways have raised no objections subject to conditions. Central Bedfordshire's objection has been withdrawn subject to conditions. The highway engineer has concluded that the proposed development would not be detrimental to the highway network subject to conditions. Parking. The total number of spaces is below the maximum provision that could be provided if all land uses were considered individually. The provision therefore reflects shared use. On this basis, it is considered that this element of the proposed development would be consistent with policy LLP 32 of the local plan. The long period of construction has the potential to be disruptive to the amenity of the surrounding area. However, this can be mitigated via a construction management plan. The development will give rise to an extensive range of positive impacts which are considerable and widespread in their public benefit, including the provision of new employment, new investment and spending in the area. There are, however, two principal matters that arise in which the development may have potentially adverse effects. First, in breach of the local plan objectives for the town centre and the Power Court site, as the retail and leisure redevelopment of this site could, without safeguards, comprise the retail development in the town centre. And second, in relation to the impact on a heritage asset, the proposal has had regard to Section 66 of the Listed Buildings and Conservation Act 1990. As set out in detail above, the development will cause less than substantial harm to heritage assets, a matter to which particular weight and importance must be given. It is for the Council to determine whether the public benefits of the proposal outweigh that harm. So in conclusion, this assessment has taken into account relevant development plan policies, the NPPF, information in an environmental statement and other environmental information, including that submitted in accordance with Schedule 4 of the EIA Regulations 2017. The proposed development does give rise to conflict with the development plan. However, the benefits that the proposal will deliver are considered to outweigh that conflict. The weight to give to all these matters is ultimately a matter for members. When considering this balance of impacts, it is highlighted that they must ensure that they take account of the information submitted with the environmental statement and the further information submitted, and in considering whether to grant planning permission for development which affects a listed building or its setting. Taking all these matters into account, balancing the social, environmental and economic benefits of the development against the residual harm, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any specific questions by members? Councillor Franks.
I've got a number of questions, I'm afraid. The first one is the building heights that we were given in the presentation. My understanding is this is an outline application with all matters except access reserved. So if we vote for this, I'm assuming that we're not voting for the building heights because they are part of the reserved matters list, and therefore they were just given to us for illustrative purposes in the way that layouts quite often are. Am I right?
That's correct, Councillor Franks. The parameter plans merely give an indication of the scale of the development and is there for information. In granting permission, you would be granting permission for only the principle of the development and the access.
Want me to carry on with my questions? Yeah. The Spine Road, then, is it proposed that that should be adopted, please?
Yes, I would. That would be the case. It would be adopted.
In that case, there is some reference in the report to. I'm not sure I'd use the word prevent, but discourage use of it by through traffic to get from Newlands Road to London Road. Could you expand on that, please?
Well, as far as I'm aware, that it's purely for access only, and no doubt I would suspect be a traffic management arrangement which would prevent it becoming a rat run, to coin a phrase.
Is there a condition to that effect?
Well, it would be part of the traffic management plan, and there is a condition requiring a traffic management plan.
Thank you. Flexible business space. Does that mean zero retail?
The flexible the retail is confined purely to plots A and B. The flexible business space would be, in terms of, as far as the North application is concerned, in plots C and D, and would relate to the what was the B1, A, B and C, which is the office, light industrial and tech, and the also for storage and distribution.
So no retail?
No retail on plots C and D.
Thank you. Only one more question. I assume the Section 106 is to be signed by the applicant. Can we have some assurance that that would be effective for subsequent owners and developers?
Well, Mr. Sparshot might be able to answer that, but as far as I'm concerned, any legal agreement transfers to any successor in title.
Say yes.
Yes. Essentially, to partly repeat, a 106 agreement will bind in all landowners, so freehold, leasehold, mortgagees, for example. There are others, but that's the main ones. And if the landowner of Newlands were different from another area of land, there would still be the requirement to comply with the obligations even if land was sold on later down the line.
Thank you. That's it from me.
Councillor Hussain.
Thank you. Can I ask, and I think you did cover it in terms of the paragraph 148 and 147 in terms of the development of Power Court. Is that, you know, an agreement in part of the condition in terms of 106 agreement that the slab level of the stadium will...
This is a not dissimilar obligation compared to the original consent, although the original consent referred to podium level. Because there's no podium, this now refers to slab level. And the requirements to take it up to slab level is to deal, as I think I said in the presentation, with the sequential test and any retail impact.
Paragraph 242 and 243, in terms of the DRT and in addition, I requested the shuttle option. Is that part of the condition? Paragraph 242 and 243 on page 95.
It would be part of the section 106. The other point is that there is an agreed sum split between both the north and the south site of 500,000 to provide an enhanced bus service. It's 220 for the northern site, so there would be a contribution.
Okay, and obviously, you know, we're coming to the second part of the application in a short while, but in terms of the park and ride, in that, I mean, though the two, even though they are separate applications, park and ride was one of the most important things when this was initially came in front of the committee, that was the thing that would be dependent on park and ride for the power cord. That can we take that now, or do we take that, Chair, at a later stage, at the second part of it?
Well, yes, I mean, in terms of, yes, the two applications were part of one application, but they're now split. Yes. But the allocation for the park and ride is on the southern site.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, it safeguards it subject to feasibility, or whether or not it's a park and ride or whether it's some other hub, transport hub, will be determined by the feasibility. But that would be part of the Section 106 agreement. But I'm straying onto the south site at the moment, which perhaps I shouldn't.
Okay. Yeah, but I'll come back to that when the other one comes in. Yeah. Those were the questions really.
Councillor Abbas, I think.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll raise the park and ride in the next stage as well. Parking, 1,700 overall. What is the split? It says in your north side document that parking 1,700 overall. So what is the split between both?
Sorry,
So 1 second. Let me go to that paragraph. So you mentioned paragraph 254?
Yep.
It says, in accordance with LBC parking standards and to ensure no over provisions of the car parking, the maximum of 1,700 spaces will be provided across the whole Newlands Park site to accommodate office, leisure, retail parking demands. So what's the split?
Well, that will be fleshed out when the details come in, because obviously the application is an outline form only, with all matters reserved for subsequent approval, save for access.
Okay, for highways, roundabouts. So if you go back to the original layout with the fancy red line, the roundabout there at top of London Road, what's the additional changes you're doing there to alleviate traffic? Yeah, that one there. Coming into that site, coming out that site. Because obviously you're making another access road coming out now, and that is pretty much a strained roundabout as it is. No, but are they going to put traffic lights in there, or is it going to be as it is now, free flowing? Are there any changes to that roundabout or anything?
If I can answer that question, there's no changes proposed as part of this development to that roundabout, and the spur for the Spine Road is already in place. That is a roundabout that's under consideration as part of the airport expansion, and there may be improvements to it at that time. But as part of this application, there are no intentions to change that, the roundabout. That's correct, yeah.
Lanes or anything to bring people from the town centre up to this location. It's not easy location to get to, so how are you going to do that?
There is a proposal to improve the cycle links between Slip End through this site and link up with existing routes for the town centre, and that would be covered by the Section 106 agreement.
Well, have I asked anything from Luton up London Road to this location?
I can't remember the specifics of the layout, but it would link the existing NCN6, and there's a route through Capability Green and that way.
Okay, and my last and final question is what Councillor Frank said at the beginning. You do give heights of buildings, yeah, but which are not detrimental, but then you are close to the Stockwood Park boundary of the park. You know what I mean? So how far off the boundary of the park will you be building these buildings?
Well, the access road separates, obviously, with the Stockwood Park boundary from the site, but it would be inset. I can't tell you what precise metres it is, but it would be offset sufficient to provide landscaping. I mean, the whole landscape proposals will have to be quite substantial in order to ensure that the visual impact of development is mitigated.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kershid.
Thank you, Chair. My question is that, you know, what is your projection that how many people will be visiting that place? And what plans you've made in terms of health issues? How are you going to deal with them? And is there any, you know, because it's going to add an extra burden in our hospital, so which is not.
I understand your question. I think that's more perhaps a question for the applicants, but certainly as far as any impacts on infrastructure is concerned, don't forget you've got a scheme that was going to go on that site which is significantly larger than that which you're looking at now. As I mentioned at the outset, and if you can take me back to the slide with the comparatives on it, please. Yes, that slide. You'll see that the quantum of development is significantly reduced. So the original application, which was approved, would have had a greater burden on infrastructure than that which is now proposed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
There being no further questions, I'll ask the applicant's representatives to come forward, please. And you've got up to 5 minutes to sum up your case.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. And good evening. At the outset, it's worth explaining that the intention is that the whole of Newlands Park is delivered in a single scheme, but we've split the site into two because we appreciate that the retail elements had the potential to raise concerns, and we did not want to delay the southern area application. Last time you will recall that there was a failed judicial review of the consent due to the retail floor space. As we have explained previously, the delivery of Newlands Park is a key part of the plan to deliver the new stadium at Power Court. On its own, it does not guarantee it, but together with the wider scheme of residential and facilities at Power Court, we have a plan that works to deliver a new stadium. We believe this application is positive in its own right. The application for the north site significantly reduces the retail offer and includes delivery of flexible, policy-compliant business and commercial space. That will ensure the delivery of Newlands Park. This is an exciting and robust response to the changes in the retail market and the context of COVID, and therefore provides the best development option. We have also been clear in this application to retain commitments to environmental standards and to public art.
Hi, good evening, Chair, Councillors. I'm Sean McGrath from WSP. We're the planning consultants for the site. As with the consented scheme, we want to ensure that the town centre is safeguarded. We've reduced the amount of comparison floor space by over 70%, and we've worked very closely with Capital and Regional, the operators of the Mall in the town centre, to agree with them conditions and restrictions they are happy with. They have not objected to this application, and Chase and Partners, the council's retail consultants, have given the scheme a green light. We want to retain the high quality of the scheme to continue to claw back trade that we know is leaking to locations elsewhere. That's why we have agreed these robust restrictions to ensure that we will continue to serve a different market to the town centre. These restrictions will be secured through the Section 106 agreement. Alongside the retail, the introduction of flexible commercial space on this site can deliver around 1,400 jobs. This will respond to demands from the market and will encourage investment. In short, in accordance with the local plan's ambition, Newlands Park will continue to be a significant economic generator and will contribute to the future prosperity of Luton. Whilst the application is in outline, the illustrative master plan submitted demonstrates a continuing commitment to a high-quality design. And I know there were some questions about parameter heights. Although the application is in outline, the parameter heights control what the impact was. So if we were going to move above those parameters, we would have to redo the environmental impact assessment. It would have to be redone again because we wouldn't have assessed the right triggers. In summary, the vision for the site remains to deliver real benefits for Luton, both through the development of the site itself and its links to Power Court. Consenting this application is a huge milestone in bringing forward two key strategic allocations that must be delivered if you are to support the local economy and transform Luton's image. I really hope you do support this application tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments by members. Councillor Abbas Hussain.
Can Stephen just confirm?
I did question. Oh, sorry. Specific questions to the applicants. Sorry, my fault.
Can Stephen confirm what I forgot the gentleman's name on this side just said regarding the perimeter heights? If they go above them, they have to submit another application. Can you just confirm that?
Yes. Yeah. It's the EIA's impact. Yeah.
Any further specific questions to the applicants? Councillor Manu is saying.
Yeah, in terms of the employment in the original application, this will be probably, is that right? Have I got that right? That there'll be less employment now than what the original scheme was?
I think technically overall the numbers are slightly lower, but they're still obviously very, very significant. But yes, they are technically lower.
Shall I just add to that? That's because there is less of the retail and leisure floor space, which obviously caused the concern with Capital and Regional last time. That's why we reduced the amount of retail space, which does have a knock-on impact on the amount of jobs. While I'm talking, is it worth just mentioning, we talked about infrastructure and the impact on infrastructure. We're hoping these jobs will be taken by Lutonians. So we want to have jobs for people in the town. So they are going to be people living in this area. It's not as if it's a housing scheme where we're going to add 500 new houses. These are jobs for people who live in the town.
Okay. Any further questions to the applicants? Now we go on to comments. Councillor Franks.
Yeah, although we all voted for the original application, I think many of us had lingering doubts about the amount of retail and the significant reduction in retail in these applications, or this application, is some comfort to me. I recognise the concerns of the late objector from Ludlow Avenue. As the sites are at present, they really are quite an attractive entrance site for the town. But for 25 years or more, it has been obvious that both were going to be developed for something. I mean, 20 years ago, it was going to be a football stadium. I just don't think even residents of places like Ludlow Avenue have the right to say that the view that they have is theirs in perpetuity. There's been a certainty of development on this site for a very long time. I get used to it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to vote for the application.
Councillor Mahmood Hussain, comment.
I think in light of the retail coming, this was one of the concerns that I did have, and I sympathise, with the town centre at the time, because that would have some adverse impact. Bringing that down, I think, in that terms, is an improvement. But in the long term, as I understand it now, that those big stores coming into Luton or a Junction 10 is probably is not very realistic nowadays. I don't think the days of John Lewis expansion is gone now. I can't see that would be the sort of thing that will be coming in any town at all. So I will be supporting the application.
Councillor Abbas?
Yeah, I'm in agreement as well with Councillor Hussain there, but definitely retail has taken a change, and understand why they've split the application and submitted the application like this, but fully support it anyway. But I just have reservations of something, but I'll raise it at the next one. I'll support this one.
Okay, thanks for that. Any further comments? Then I'll go to the vote. I'll move approval.
Second that, Chair.
Of the recommendation subject to the minor amendments. And that's seconded.
Seconded, Chair.
Right, Chair, going to the vote. This is for Newlands Road North.
Yeah, yes.
Councillor Bridgen?
He's declared interest. He's left, yeah.
Sorry. Councillor Campbell? Against?
Against, yeah.
Councillor Donnellan?
For.
Councillor Franks?
For.
Councillor Abbas Hussain?
For.
Councillor Mahmood Hussain?
For.
Councillor Kershi?
For.
Councillor Massoud?
For.
Councillor Taylor?
For. That's seven for, 1 against, and 3 absences.
Carried.
So that's carried. Then we go on to part 2 now, which is the south site. And I've got Clive Inwards. Is he Clive?
Sorry, you got me again.
Oh, no, I don't have a problem with that. I don't think anyone else has. Page 138.
Thank you, Chair. Just to repeat that the late objection also refers to this application. I'm quite happy to repeat it, but if you just take as read what I've said previously, if that's acceptable,
please,
then we can proceed. This planning application seeks outline planning permission for a mixed-use development comprised of flexible commercial and business floor space, including office floor space, public art, gateway feature, car and cycle parking, and associated access, highways, utilities, drainage, landscaping, and ancillary works and structures. The application has come to committee as it is a major application. Other than the reference to the late objection, there is no update on this item, so consideration of the application is as per the published committee report. If I could have slide 1. This is the application site outlined in red, which is the Newlands Park South site, and which includes the access point off the London Road roundabout. Members of the committee may previously have visited this site as part of the consideration of the previous 2016 scheme on the site. Slide 2, please. The south side includes plots E, F and G, which are shown in the orange-brown colours. Plots A, D are also shown in the grey colours, but these sit in the north site, which you've just determined. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the main difference in terms of the amount and range of floor space for the existing planning permission on the left and now what is proposed on the north and south applications. Thus, it is evident that the south application is for up to 42,000 square metres of flexible commercial and business use, including office space, and up to 1,100 car parking spaces. The application also includes the supporting infrastructure. The next slide, please. This slide demonstrates how development in plots E, F and G could be laid out, utilising the elbow of the site for a larger building and then utilising the linear nature of the remainder of the site for smaller buildings. Next slide, please. This slide demonstrates the height parameters for the buildings on the south site in the top slide, which would limit the maximum height of buildings to 18 metres. The image below then gives an indication of how the proposed buildings would look as viewed from the M1 set within the extensive landscaping which is proposed. Next slide, please. And then the indicative landscaping is shown in plan form on the next slide, where it is demonstrated that there is significant space around the buildings to provide comprehensive landscaping that would assist in integrating the proposed buildings into the landscape. The next slide, please. If I can go to the next one, there's a sequence which give a few visual interpretations of how the site could look as viewed from the west across the M1. Next slide, please. Looking northwards across the site from the M1 Junction 10 roundabout, and then finally, next slide, please. Looking eastwards across the southbound off Slip Road of Junction 10 of the M1. Members will see from paragraph 26 of this item that the main planning considerations relate to the principle of development, consideration of the environmental impact assessment, the impact on the character and appearance of the area and on heritage assets, the impact on neighbouring amenity, transport and parking implication, and issues relating to biodiversity, ecology and trees, sustainability, economic development and job creation, planning obligations and the cumulative effect. In relation to the principle of development, the application site falls within the land south of Stockwood Park allocation, where policy LLP5 applies. It is considered that the current application does accord with Part A of policy LLP5 by safeguarding land for a park and ride facility and by providing flexible employment floor space that could constitute office floor space as required by policy LLP5. The report also demonstrates that the application does meet the criteria-based requirements of Part B of policy LLP5, and whilst the range of uses now proposed is greater than envisaged by LLP5, they can still contribute to the prestige gateway development that is required by this policy. It is also noted that policy LLP13 identifies land south of Stockwood Park as a strategic allocation for B1 office and light industrial uses. Accordingly, the proposal is considered to comply with both policies LLP5 and LLP13 of the local plan. In relation to the environmental impact assessment, the report has carefully considered the relevant chapters of the environmental statement, and the conclusions of this chapter have been noted and have been used to make the relevant assessment of the application. With regard to the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area, it has been recognised that the proposed development is at the outline stage with all matters reserved except for access. This means that the detailed design of the development is not under consideration at this stage, but rather it is important to demonstrate that high quality proposals can come forward on the site. The The height parameter plan sets out the maximum height of the buildings on plots E, F and G, which would be 18 metres, which is considered to be an acceptable height parameter in this instance, balancing the requirements to provide a gateway feature with the need to avoid significant adverse impacts on the heritage assets or compromise the safety of London Luton Airport operations. Additionally, the approach to the potential massing of the site is welcomed, and the long and thin nature of this really dictates how the site can be laid out. The indicative layout allows for significant landscaping around the buildings and provides for cycle and pedestrian links between the plots, which is also welcomed. In terms of the appearance, the indicative visuals that have been provided in support of the application demonstrate that the development could be of the exceptional design required, such that it would meet the requirements of policy LLP 5. It is recognised that getting the detailed design and materiality is paramount to the success of the development, and therefore a design code and external materials are recommended as conditions on any granting of planning permission. Drawing these issues together, it is considered that the proposal would have a positive impact on the character and appearance of the area in accordance with policy LLP 25 of the local plan. With regard to impact on heritage assets, the proposal would not materially affect any of the designated conservation areas in the Borough of Luton. In relation to the impact on listed buildings, both Historic England and the Council's Conservation Advisor conclude that the proposed development would not impact on the Grade 2 listed Stockwood House stable block and would result in less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 star historic landscape heritage asset at Luton Hoo. Given that there is considered to be harm, this has to be given significant weight by Section 66 of the Listed Buildings and Conservations Act 1990. This weight is considered in the report before the balancing exercise of weighing the harm against the material of the benefits of the scheme is undertaken. The report concludes that the significant benefits of the proposal would outweigh the less than significant harm to the designated heritage asset of the Grade 2 star Luton Hoo registered park or the non-designated heritage asset of Stockwood Park. With regard to the impact on neighbouring residential amenity, it is not considered that the proposal would result in any adverse impact given the distance to the nearest residential properties and the existing intervening infrastructure in the form of the raised A1081 New Airport Way. In relation to highways issues, the Highway Authority has raised no issue with the current proposal subject to conditions as set out in the report. It is also noted that Central Bedfordshire Council has confirmed that they have removed their original objections on highway grounds due to the imposition of conditions. With regard to the parking, the proposed development provides for up to 1,100 car parking spaces as a maximum. This number of spaces is considered to be an appropriate amount, almost falling exactly halfway between the car parking range for B1/B2 or B8 uses. This level of parking has been considered to be appropriate by the Highway Authority and at this level would still incentivise using alternative forms of transport to the private car in accordance with the aims of the travel plan. In relation to cycle parking, no details have been provided at this outline stage, but there would be ample room to accommodate safe and secure cycle parking, and these details will be required as part of the Reserve Matters submissions. In relation to biodiversity, ecology and trees, with the mitigation measures set out in the report, the proposal is considered to be acceptable and to accord with the principle of policy LLP 28 of the local plan to protect and promote biodiversity and criterion 6 of LLP 5, which requires that the development will protect features of nature conservation. With regard to sustainability, the development is targeting BREEAM Excellent for the office building and very good for other non-domestic buildings, which are both in excess of the good standards set out in policy LLP 37 of the local plan. In relation to flooding, the proposed development site is situated in flood zone 1, which is the lowest category of flood risk, and it is relevant to note that the lead local flood authority has now removed their original objection, subject to the conditions set out in the report. In relation to economic development and job creation, the report sets out the economic benefit of the proposal, including the north and south sites cumulatively being able to support up to 3,967 full-time equivalent jobs directly as a result of the proposed development. Whilst the figures in the report are based on assumptions and estimates and relate to both the north and the south site, it is clear that both the construction and operation of development on this south application site would result in significant economic benefit, which is a strong material consideration weighing in favour of the application and would also accord with policy LLP 13 of the local plan, which supports the delivery of sustainable economic growth. In relation to developer contributions, the applicant has agreed to provide the contributions requested as set out in the report, including the 280,000 now agreed for the bus contribution. Conclusion. The report before members demonstrates that the proposal is acceptable in principle and complies with Part A of Policy LLP 5, as office use is included in the range of flexible employment uses for which permission is sought. Additionally, the park and ride element can be safeguarded through a requirement in the Section 106 agreement. Further, the wider range of uses for which permission is now sought would not offend the principle of Policy LLP 5 to provide a prestige gateway development. Additionally, through the consideration of the various sections of this report, it has been demonstrated that the proposal complies with the criteria of Part B of Policy LLP 5 as it provides the necessary comprehensive master plan. National highways are now agreeable to the development proposals. Public transport services are to be secured through the sustainable transport contribution. The proposal has demonstrated that it can provide a high-quality southern gateway to the town while minimising its impact on the landscape, heritage assets and the adjacent wildlife site. The height and lighting would not compromise the safety of the airport, and the proposal provides the necessary connectivity to nearby cycleways and footpaths, whilst also providing for those necessary active travel links through the site. This report has also found that the impact on neighbouring users and occupiers would be acceptable. The highway's impact and parking provision would be acceptable, and that the proposal has demonstrated the necessary commitment to sustainability and biodiversity. Finally, the proposals would provide for job creation and sustainable economic growth, complying with policy LLP 13 of the local plan and the Council's wider aspirations. For these reasons, it is considered that the development comprises a sustainable and high-quality form of development. On this basis, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions set out in the committee report and the completion of a Section 106 agreement as per the heads of terms set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any specific questions by members? Councillor Mahmood Hussain.
Can I ask you on paragraph 132 on page 152, in terms of the question I was saying earlier on, park and ride was one of the most important requirements of the development at Power Court, yeah? What is changed that we ought to be looking at something else? Is their traffic has gone down? What are we talking about? I'm totally confused.
I don't think you're looking at anything different.
Other than that land, safeguarding the land for park and ride will still be the same as what it was suggested in the first place.
The 2016 application, which was approved, had a similar proviso, namely that there would be safeguarding for a park and ride.
Yeah.
This application does the same. It provides safeguarding for a park and ride, which is in accordance with policy LLP 5.
Yeah. And in terms of the management of the park and ride, if I can recall it, it was the responsibility would be the Luton Town Football Club.
I don't think that there was ever any suggestion at that time, I may be wrong, but I don't recall that the management of it was ever a subject of discussion, simply because that the requirement was only to provide safeguarding for it, which the 2016 application did, and which also this does exactly the same thing, it safeguards it.
Chair,
Yeah, I think we can get the applicant's representative to enlarge on that. Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is that the applicant did offer voluntarily, when I asked that question, that they will be responsible, and I assume that the officers then put that as one of the things that it was offered.
I think, as Chairman said, how it's managed would
it
be a matter for the applicant.
It was one of the questions I put to the applicant,
yeah.
And the applicant did volunteer and assured me that that would be the case.
Well, they will no doubt.
Because my serious concern was that we do not want, and neither will the people of Luton will ever forgive us for that, if we shifted the travel, the problem we have at Kenilworth Road down to the town centre, yeah? Because that would be something will be not acceptable to anybody in Luton.
I remember you raising the point when we dealt with the Power Court application, but I think the situation is that whilst there's an extant planning permission which includes the football stadium, we don't have a planning application in for the football stadium as yet. Yeah. When that comes forward, no doubt these car parking arrangements will have to be addressed at that time, and I think perhaps then we will be able to look at your concern about transposing the problem from Kenilworth Road to Power Court, but that would all be part of that application.
Yeah. The only thing, Chair, I wanted to get it right, that this was the only part of park and ride land that has been suggested, because both applications are, even though they are separate, but they were also part of the football stadium, because one depended on the other. So I just want to be, I'll make my comment at a later stage.
Councillor Franks.
Yeah, my question's for you, Chair. Are the applicants' representatives going to address us? Because if they are, my question would be more appropriately addressed to them.
I suggested when Councillor Sain's question, the applicants may wish to enlighten us on the proposals for Park and Ride.
No, it doesn't. I just want to know whether they're going to address us, because if they're not, I'll ask my question now. And if they are, then I'll wait and ask my question of them, because that's more appropriate.
It's two separate applications. Councillor Abbas.
Okay, I'm a bit confused to the answer that the officer colleague gave there to Councillor Hussain on paragraph 32. So you're saying that park and ride on this location would be safeguarded?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So you said that park and ride on this application will be safeguarded. Am I correctly understanding that? Does there be some sort of park and ride on this application?
That is correct. It will be safeguarded by a section as part of the Section 106 obligation.
Okay, because if you read paragraphs 32 in the middle there, it says that the allocations were plots F and G as potential location for such a facility. This then complies with the land quantum as required in the policy, while also providing a feasible alternative for land should a park and ride facility not come forward. So I'm a bit confused. So is there a park and ride facility at this location or not?
Yes, is the short answer. There is a requirement. There has to be a provision and safeguarding for a park and ride for the development to be policy compliant. It's a requirement of Policy 5, LLP 5, in the local plan that there is safeguarding. And this application will safeguard, by way of a Section 106 agreement, the provision of a park and ride facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I'll ask the applicants to come. Oh, you're already forward, and now you've got up to 5 minutes, and you may want to respond to some of the questions that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. If I may, it may be better if I respond directly to questions when that part of the evening arises specifically. But yes, the assurances we can discuss properly. I want to start by again reiterating the intention that the southern site will be delivered at the same time as the northern site. The application for the southern site is for employment floor space that could support a mix of different uses and businesses. There are no retail uses. The proposals reflect the local plan allocation, but again, the scheme seeks to respond to challenges in the commercial market as a result of COVID-19. The delivery of flexible business space on this site is policy compliant. It aligns with the vision to provide a new gateway to the town and an employment site. The proposals will provide a platform to encourage new businesses into Luton with appropriate flexibility to respond to the needs of the market and occupiers. The proposals will deliver significant new jobs and an enormous boost to the Luton economy.
Thank you, Chair, councillors. I will come on to the park and ride, but just at the outset, as with the north site, the master plan demonstrates the excellent quality that can be delivered in a positive and sustainable manner. It also includes a gateway feature that will be further developed with the council as we move on to the detailed design stage. You've heard about the park and ride. To be absolutely clear, as with the consented scheme, 2 hectares has been identified as a potential future town centre park and ride site should it be required. This is safeguarded in the Section 106 agreement as it was last time, and safeguarding, as we've heard, accords with the local plan policy LLP5. However, we wanted to deliver the most appropriate and sustainable solution for the site. And so we have agreed with officers that the feasibility of a park and ride and the function of a park and ride will be undertaken to ensure that the best solution is delivered for the site and the town. Being blunt, if you look in the committee report, I think it's on paragraph 8, the first time a park and ride was mooted on the site was 1995. There has been there's different thought and thinking about sustainability and should there be a park and ride, and we just want to get to the bottom of that, and we will work with officers to come up with the answer to that. We are committed to it. It will be in the Section 106, but we just want to make sure that that is the most sustainable solution. As with the north site, the key vision is that the development will deliver a real benefits for Luton through the development of the site itself and its links with Power Court. This application, again, is a huge milestone that will support the economy of the town with a scheme that is viable and deliverable. Again, I do hope that you will support this application, and if there are questions, obviously we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions to the applicants? Nabil Hussain.
Can I ask you, which I really should have asked you rather than the planning, at the previous application in 2016, we were assured, and he confirmed it in terms of safeguarding park and ride, but there was also a offer being made by one of you. I'm not too sure whether it was yourself or the chief executive of the Luton Town offered that it will be managed by Luton Town. Is that still the case, or do we need to put a condition on that?
I'm able to respond. I think it's important, really important here to differentiate Newlands Park and Power Court in the sense that the football stadium at Power Court that we're working on every day, that we're coming forward with very soon in detail, will be the subject of a detailed, extensive transport plan. That transport plan will be worked on with your officers as required. As part of that transport plan, we have discussed the idea, the concept of intercept car parks in and around the town to improve the viability of the stadium. It's possible, absolutely possible, that one such location could be Newlands Park. What we haven't done that will come through that work with your officers to put together a comprehensive plan for the stadium, because our commitment and determination that Power Court works for fans as a sustainable transport location is absolutely clear. The benefits to the town of moving from Kenilworth Road we went through endlessly in previous meetings. So the requirements for what's needed for a new stadium at Power Court will be dealt with at huge great length with your officers, and we'll come back to you for discussion at the next planning meeting for Power Court.
I think what I'm looking for is that the answer is really, which I've said a little while ago, is trying to shift the problem from Kenilworth Road, which it is at the moment, historically, and shifting that in the town centre. This is a serious concern to every resident in Luton.
And I understand that, I hear that, I recognise that. Just to reiterate, the wholesale commitment to the club is that Power Court works as a sustainable transport location. It's not a question of moving a problem from one part of the town to the other, and we'll go through that in absolute detail at the appropriate time.
As far as I can see, this isn't the application on which we should be looking for details of how the park and rides are going to work. That's going to come later. I understand plot G takes its access from Church Road. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I do have a concern about 3 additional accesses onto what is quite a narrow Newlands Road. The question is, why can't plots E and F take their access from the roundabout that's providing access to the northern development?
Councillor Franks, I can only answer that we've tried to design a scheme there that responds to the needs of occupiers as best we can. The view of occupiers, agents and transport consultants was that's the access arrangements that was best to deliver the site. So really all I can say is that's what we feel is the best layout.
Thank you for the answer. I do have concern about 3 additional accesses off that road. Maybe our traffic engineer might want to say something when we finish with questions to the applicant.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so now. We have conditioned that we, in conjunction with Central Bedfordshire Council, will have to approve the detailed design of those access points. So at that time, we'll consider the technical elements of the design of that and ensure that they are safe. There is also a proposal to reduce the speed limit on Newlands Road to 30 mile an hour, which will obviously help with the design considerations.
Sorry, did you say 30? It's 40 at the moment.
Yes, 30.
Okay. No further questions. Comments now, please. Member Hussain?
Yes, Chair. Other than what I've said and without repeating, I think if the safeguarding of park and ride and the management, which I know is not at this stage, but I do have a serious concern, it's not just for the football day, but if there are concerts and other, that it ought to be managed by Luton Town. If those conditions, then I would support the recommendation of the officers. If those were the conditions that we can do that at this stage, I'm asking the Stephen whether that can be done at this stage, so that we are I'm not feasibility for anything else. No, park and ride must be safeguarded for the foreseeable for the development of the town, and there should be no change on that.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think it's been articulated by the applicant and indeed by the planning officer that this application is in relation to Newlands, specifically in relation to Newlands South. The park and ride facility will have will be safeguarded in a similar way to what was in the previous 106 for both, I believe, the north and south sites in terms of Newlands. But as the applicant said, in terms of the management of, and yeah, I understand your points about the displacement from Kenilworth Road to Power Court and then the traffic issues that may or may not arise. And I can only really say pretty much what the applicant and the agent said, is that those issues and that displacement and that planning harm as such, and those traffic management plans and whatever other highway issues may or may not arise, will be dealt with at the point of the Power Court planning application. All this is doing is potentially approving two developments, well, this particular development on Newlands South, but ensuring that the LLP 5 policy is kept in place and preserved by allowing the feasibility and safeguarding of the park and ride facility to come forward at a later date. What it's used for and who manages it and so on isn't something that we can condition or deal with now, but the harm in relation to the Power Court item, which we shouldn't really be talking about to this detail, will have its own conditions and so on in relation to how the displacement and traffic is dealt with at Power Court, which, as the applicant said, may include something at Power Court Newlands, as well as other car parks around the town. But we can't condition a requirement that the football club does X on this land at Newlands to ensure that that park and ride facility is used by and for the football club. It may well arise to that effect when the Power Court application is being dealt with, but let's forget about that for now as such. This 106 agreement will safeguard the land for park and ride, and its management and use will be dealt with further down the line. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Campbell, did you comment?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Hossain, which I don't normally do. But anyway, I've got a lot of concerns about the old overall of when it first came to us, and we had a big meeting about football stadium, Power Court, development up at Junction 10, all this fantastic thing, House of Fraser, blah, 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 and that's all fallen apart. So now we're coming and we're having chunks of this, chunks of that, right? They can't tell us when the football stadium is going to be built, right? And then we're being promised that this park and ride might materialise at some stage later on, right? One of the problems I see, where is the bus going to go? Have we got bus lanes? No, we haven't. So they're going to join the traffic. Luton is very congested with traffic. We're going to be bringing more traffic in. So if you don't have some sort of park and ride, it's going to be a nightmare. But when we've, as I said already, we had this big meeting where all these fantastic things was going to materialise for Luton. And now we're coming, we're going to build this bit, but later on we might build that bit. I mean, are we going to end up with offices that are empty? Shopping places that are empty? Because the whole structure of working has changed completely. Shopping has changed completely. So we could end up with a load of building, if they're built, that's just sitting there empty. And to be honest with you, the great thing we were going to have originally is all seems to be coming down to a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. Where is the big idea? It's gone. And as I say, I will agree with Councillor saying traffic is going to be a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Luton is terrible for traffic. We're going to end up with one-way roads all over the place so you can get by. We're having it in Southern Park. One way there, otherwise you can't park. Buses can pass in Grampian Way. It's a nightmare. And we are going to build something that's going to bring people into the town, up there, into the power cord. How are you going to manage traffic? And where is the bus lane? You can't have a bus lane because we haven't got the width of the roads. I mean, I'm sorry. I am very disappointed with all of it.
Okay, you've expressed your opinion. I don't necessarily agree with most of it.
Whoa, stop, please. That is my opinion.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with it, you put your opinion, but don't tell me you don't agree with my opinion, because I just made my feelings a bit, and you do it all the time, Chair. You keep having a go at me for my opinion. That is my opinion. Leave my opinion alone. No, you do it all the time, and I'm sick of it. It's all being videoed. I'm sick of you doing it. I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I know we've been going on about this park and ride for a little while now, yeah? Me being a Dallow councillor, yeah, my residents, every football game suffer, yeah? Starting from Avondale Road, Hesbury Crescent, all the way up to Clifton Road where I live. Okay, even last night, 30 minutes I was driving around looking for parking space, and then I had to park on Hatter's Garage, yeah, and then walk back after 10 o'clock to pick up my car. You know, they suffer all the time, and I don't want, for many years, I was born on Avondale Road, I moved from there from 95 to Clifton Road, and honestly, Luton Town Football Club don't give a damn about any residents parking in those areas on football days. I can tell you this now. Yeah, but my worry is that losing this park and ride facility at Newlands Road, yeah, will will cause a problem down in the town centre. And this park and ride is why I criticised Gary Sweet last time. He's not here today, but last time that, I mean, is there parking on that land, you know, at Power Court? And he said, yes, there was a solution. And I was happy because I was thinking there's a park and ride up the road, so it'll be sorted. But now coming back to Stephen's, what he said, yeah? So paragraph 33 now, yeah? So this is what confuses me. You say that park and ride is secured under the 106 agreement, which I know developers can fiddle with. But then it doesn't help when you write stuff like this either. Per paragraph 33 on page 152, it is considered that the current application does accord with the Part A of the policy LLP5. Fine, it does, by safeguarding the land for park and ride facility, or, it says here, or providing office floor space. So now you tell me how are you safeguarding that?
Yeah, I think we keep going over the same thing again. Stephen, do you want to come in and say that the park and ride
paragraph 33, Stephen, how would you translate that?
It's safeguarded with a Section 106 agreement, which companies can't fiddle. It's a legal agreement that they have to comply with.
Thank you, Chairman. There may be confusion in that paragraph. I've not got to it, but the heads of terms in the recommendation requires the but it requires the park and ride facility to be safeguarded. So that will be included in the 106 agreement. Right, okay.
The Section 106 would override whatever in
the 106 heads of terms, I don't have instructions on it yet, but I'm sure it would be pretty similar to what we did last time round. And I drafted the 106 agreement with the, obviously liaising with the football club solicitors, and it safeguarded that land. I can't say any more.
No, it's been emphasised. As I say.
In light of the legal opinion given by Stephen, I am satisfied that this guarantees the park and ride as a guarantee. This is what I was looking for, that this is a legal requirement, that it will not change unless it comes back to this committee and it can change that. Am I right, Stevens, that this is a legal, it overrides anything else, and it cannot be done by the officer to change that policy? Have I got that right or wrong?
I think I'd need to speak with the client specifically about exactly what the 106 agreement is going to say. But all I can emphasise is it refers to the land being safeguarded. If the planning officer wants to say anything more, that's up to them.
Can I just say that the wording of the Section 106 will include the requirement for the safeguarding of a park and ride facility up at Newlands in the same way as the legal agreement required safeguarding for the park and ride in the extant planning permission.
Chair, I'm satisfied with that. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, Chen, it's just to, I understand why members are concerned about and talking about Power Court, but just to emphasise that this application, as well as the previous one, has to be determined on its own merits. So it's remove yourself from the fact that there's Power Court and the potential enabling development and the economic side of it that may or may not come forward as per what the applicant wants to do. You're looking at an outline application for commercial and so on up at Newlands South. That's what you need to be concentrating on, with the comfort that a park and ride facility that will be used by whoever wants to park there for whatever reason, town centre, football club, and so on, will be safeguarded in this 106, because that is a requirement of this piece of land as a result of LLP 5. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, are there any other comments without actually including Section 106, park and ride again? No, there being no further comments, then I'll move to the recommendation, and the recommendation is to approve, and I'll move it. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Chair.
Councillor. So we'll go to the vote.
Right, Chair, it's me again. So, starting with Councillor Campbell. Against? Councillor Donnellan.
For.
Councillor Franks.
For.
Councillor Abbas Hussain.
For.
Councillor Mahmoud Hussain.
For.
Councillor Kershid.
For.
Councillor Masood.
For.
And Councillor Taylor.
For.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against.
Seven for the recommendation and 1 against. So that's carried. Permission has been granted for the whole of the site now. Okay, thank you very much for your patience and your perseverance. Now we'll go on to item 11, land rear of 4563 Ridgeway Road, 203. Oh, there you are. Can you, hold on, Councillor Bridgen, can somebody go and... He's coming down. Or what is? Start the sooner we get away.
Chair, we need to get,
Can you hear me at the back?
we need to get Newlands back.
Can you hear me at the back? Thank you. I'm trying to. Yeah, okay. Ridgeway Road.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Nyla.
Good evening. This application relates to the rear of 45 to 63 Ridgeway Road, and the report is set out on pages 203 to 234 of the agenda. This application is subject to a verbal update seeking some amendment to the wording of paragraph 2, clause 3, to delete the word firm before the word condition, and to amend the wording of clause 4 to include the word to at the end of and to read that planning permission is granted subject to. This scheme will also be the subject of a 10,000 monitoring fee, and the requirement within the section 1 is section 106 to provide good service and labour forms. The application site comprises a piece of land located to the rear of the properties in Ridgeway Road, which were previously occupied by a warehouse, lock-up garages and office accommodation, which have all been demolished on the site. Access to the site is via an existing driveway located between numbers 41 to 45 Ridgeway Road. The site has two proposals. Scheme 1 relates to the erection of a three-storey building located in the southeast corner, as shown on the slide, to provide 6 two-bedroom flats with associated parking, bin and site storage. Next slide, please. The second proposal is seeking another three-storey building in the northeast corner to provide another 6 two-bedroom flats with associated parking, bin and site storage. Members may recall that the applications for the redevelopment both sides was brought 12 flats was brought before the DM committee on the 27th of March 2019, where members resolved to grant the planning permission subject to the satisfactory completion of the section 106 agreement. For ease of reference, the original committee report has been included in Appendix 2 of the current report.
Questions? Councillor Campbell.
I was a bit concerned that it's 12 two-bedrooms going to be built in 2 blocks, is it?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
16 each block.
Yeah. What size are the bedrooms, may I ask? Because I can't see it.
They were all in the original scheme. I think there were all 6. There were 2 3-bedroom units.
There are two bedrooms. What is the size of the bedrooms?
I wouldn't know that at the top of my head, Councillor Campbell. That would be on the plans. But that was already discussed and approved in the 2019 scheme.
Okay. Well, I thought it should have been in this.
Can I just stop everyone there? Stephen, it's about the live stream.
Yeah, I've just been informed. I think maybe Councillor Bridger informed the Democratic Services Officer. Thank you. Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, people can't hear on the live stream.
Yes, Chair. Yes, I've been informed that people watching on a live stream have lost sound.
Completely or glitchy?
It didn't affect the last.
No. Only for this item, I think, from about 8:10, I think it said.
So they can't hear the planning officer's address, basically?
No.
Right, okay. My advice, as similar to the advice I gave last time round, when I was online and lost the ability to hear anyone, but I think you could hear me when I said, excuse me, can you hear me? People have the right, if we're offering the facility to allow committee to take place, the meeting takes place here, the decisions take place here, but the officers can interject remotely, as indeed Nyla is, and indeed members of the public are asked to, they're given the choice. They can either come into the committee chamber or, correct me if I'm wrong, Democratic Services, the publication refers to the fact that you can basically tune in online and the YouTube references are given. So people are given the option to either come into the chamber to listen or listen online. Therefore, my view is that if people can't hear and they have a right to be heard, they're not speaking necessarily because all the speakers have been dealt with, but nevertheless, if they are given the option to use the online facility and they are listening online and they can't hear what anyone is saying, be either in this chamber or indeed what Nyla's saying, then any decisions made are open to challenge on the basis that person could not hear the meeting that they were duly invited to. So, at this moment in time, my advice is a short adjournment to try and sort that position out. The unfortunate position in the long term is if it can't be sorted out, then my view is decisions that are made in relation to items where people online cannot hear are potentially open to challenge. Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, just an update. I've had an update that from someone who's watching the live stream that they've now got sound back, but they missed the officer's report.
Can I ask, forgive me, thank you, but Democratic Services, do you not know whether the live stream is working or not?
There's no way of telling the equipment here.
So none of you are tuned in to make sure?
So it could be that the person who was watching, it could be that it was a personal problem. So I think what my colleague is going to watch...
You said a number of people, didn't you? Well, that...
Yeah, at least a couple of people who were watching online have sort of mentioned in a chat that they lost sound, so, yeah.
This is a tricky bit. When I was online last time, there were 5 or 6 of us that couldn't hear, and then it became obvious that it was everyone rather than... Initially, I thought it was my internet, so I turned my computer off and on, don't we all? But,
Stephen, because you're sitting here, and you're connected to this network here, they could probably hear you. But the question we should ask is, can they hear Nyla? So if Nyla talks for about 2 minutes, can they hear? Then there's a problem on that side. It's not this side then.
Yeah, it's whether they can hear everything, whether it's me or Nyla or you or
so
someone.
I mean, so we know they can hear you because you've been speaking and they've responded back because you're sitting in the chamber. But the question is, can they hear the person speaking on the feed?
Well, let's ask
Yeah.
Nyla.
It seems odd that it's happened on this
Well,
application.
I would say ask Nyla. Can someone ring Nyla? Nyla, can you hear? You can hear us. Right. Okay. Is there anyone else online that could say whether they can or can't hear us?
Sorry, I mean, this isn't a problem with the MS Teams connection, it's a problem with the YouTube connection, which is different.
Okay. But still, my point, okay, thank you. My point still stands that if we offer the YouTube connection and people can't hear via that, rather than, thank you, I didn't think of that, the MS Teams connection, which is different, it would seem, that still means my advice stands and we should try and sort that YouTube connection out. It's fine now.
Yes, that's correct. So it's fine now. They just didn't get the officer's report.
Right. So they can hear everything I've just said, and yeah.
Okay.
Are we happy to go with what Councillor Bridgen's told us? And thanks to his friend. So, Nyla, if Chairman was okay, would you? 8:10, did we say? It would make sense, because I don't know how long ago you started speaking. Sorry, Chairman, it's your meeting, but I would say go back to the beginning and start this item again.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Chairman?
Yeah, well, not entirely, but we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just read what I said. Okay, this application is subject to a verbal update seeking amendments to the wording of paragraph 2, clause 3 to delete the word clerk before the word condition, and to amend the wording of clause 4 to include the word to at the end to read that planning permission is granted subject to. This scheme will also be the subject to a monitoring frequent site located at the rear of the properties in Ridgeway Road, which were previously occupied by the warehouse and locked garages and office accommodation, which have now been demolished and sold. Access to the site is via an existing driveway located between numbers 41 and 45 Ridgeway Road. The scheme has two proposals, one seeking to erect a 3-storey building in the southeast corner to provide 60-bedroom flats with associated parking, bin and cycle storage, and the second scheme is to erect a 3-storey building in the northeast corner to provide 6 2-bedroom flats, again with associated parking, bin and cycle storage. Members may recall that the application for the redevelopment of both sides to create 12 flats was brought before the TN committee on the 27th of March 2019, where members resolved to grant planning permission subject to the satisfactory approach has in relation to the
Sorry, Mr. Chair. The YouTube feed is about 5 minutes behind, so it's not live. So currently it's showing Councillor Bridgen talking at the moment. Yeah, but I don't know if that's going to be a problem for Steve.
No, I don't see a legal problem with that, but I see a problem with that.
just carry on. If it's 5 minutes behind, it's 5 minutes behind, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't see that as a problem because they will still hear everything, just in 5 minutes' time.
Yeah.
They would have heard the entire meeting just in their own time zone. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, carry on, please.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Nyla. Questions? I think this all relates to the recommendations, paragraph 2.4, and that's the delegated authority being given to the head of planning. Section 106, and if the section 106 is not completed within 6 months, then the delegated authority can be to refuse. Is that right? Yes? I've got it. Yeah. It's rather unusual, but it's...
Yeah, Chair, it's a new recommendation that we're introducing. Obviously, it's down to members whether you agree or not. What we found is that following decision at committee, there is occasions where, shall we say, the progress on the 106 isn't as swift as officers would like. There's sometimes genuine reasons why that is the case, but often it could be, developers maybe engineering a situation where they can delay a permission being granted. And so this additional clause, which is effectively a dual recommendation, should ensure that there is sufficient focus following a committee decision to progress the 106 in a timely way. Other councils have had this for a while, so we're now using it here in Luton.
I really can't see why we're making such heavy weather of this. It's perfectly straightforward to me. 3 years ago, the committee voted to grant consent subject to a Section 106 agreement, which has never been completed. All we're being asked to do now is to confirm that decision with an additional provision which says that if the Section 106 is not completed within 6 months, delegated authority is given for refusal. Why can't we just get on with it?
Any other questions? Any comments? The recommendation is before us. I'll move the recommendation, which is approved subject to. Seconded. I will go to the vote.
Okay, Chair. So for Ridgeway, starting with Councillor Bridgen.
4.
Councillor Campbell is not there. Councillor Donnellan.
4.
Councillor Franks.
4.
Councillor Abbas Hussain.
Against?
Against. Councillor Mahmood Hussain.
4.
Councillor Kershid.
4.
Councillor Masood.
Yeah, 4.
And Councillor Taylor.
4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 1. 6, 1 in favour of the recommendation.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to the very last bit of business tonight, and that's the scale of charges. Proposal for 22-23. Sonny, are you doing this one?
Darren's doing this.
Stream, isn't it?
Carry on, Darren.
Thanks, Darren. Have you put the dog out? Because it's been...
I'll put the dog down yet.
No, outside I meant. Don't put the dog down. Not for our benefit. Any questions on scale of charges? No questions? No comments? And we approve the scale of charges. Anybody, no dissent? We don't need to take the vote then. So, approved.